Thanks so much, Amy. Thanks for all your help in getting us launched in this wonderful live event. I think this is so amazing that we can actually meet with folks live online. What a gift that technology offers to us to be able to connect with you. And that's why we're just real excited to be able to not just connect, but be able to communicate on just such a really important topic at a cool time, Friday night.
Well, hopefully you're joining us with your spouse and you can kick up your feet, relax. It's Friday, you have the weekend before you, and you can just be with us, enjoy this time. Hopefully you'll find it not only inspiring, but entertaining.
Absolutely. And so we're going to be with you. We'll be talking together for about 45 minutes. And in the midst of all of that, we're going to communicate, hopefully, lots of insights for you around this really crucial topic. How do you parent the digital generation so that our kids can safely learn how to navigate the internet? I'm so excited that we've had over 100 people register. We had more than 100 registrations for this webinar. And that's without a lot of time and without a lot of promotion. And that for me just points to the real significance of this topic that it is in the lives of so many concerned parents, caring parents who want the best for their kids. So we're going to jump right in and get started. And I just want to raise the first question about why are we here? And it's a great question. And I want to say the first reason why we're here is around this topic itself. I've been doing church ministry work for more than 25 years, and one of the things that I've loved about ministry is I could talk about things that I have a passion for, talking about Christ and the church and so many other important topics that I chose. This is not one of them. I did not choose this topic. This topic chose us.
Well, we're probably here for the same reason you are, in that several years ago, our daughter, Mary Grace, wanted an iPhone, a smartphone, for Christmas. She was sharing my phone, as were several of the other kids, and she's like, I need my own phone. All my friends have their own phone. Why can't I have my own phone? And, she's very smart, responsible, good child. And we thought, sure, let's give her a smartphone. It's a great Christmas gift. And little did we know at that time what we were putting into her hands. We just had no idea. And even though we asked our friends and we asked family members, no one could really say, hey, warning, 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 this is what you're signing up for.
And I thought, we're pretty astute parents, we're pretty alert, but I'll be honest, we were very naive regarding, in fact, what was happening when we put this technology into the hands of our daughter. So when this technology, this iPhone, found its way into the hands of our daughter, this topic emerged in our lives. And we're going to be telling you that story, weaving it in, of our oldest daughter, Mary Grace, and what happened as a result of this phone that went into her hands. And one of the fruits is parenting the digital generation. We want to preserve you from some of the mistakes we made. We want to protect you and your kids from some of the minefields and hand grenades that are associated with the digital world. And we want to equip you to be able to shepherd your kids to a place of life-giving trust when it comes to connected devices. Now, ultimately, why are we here? Well, as a philosopher and theologian, why are we here? The deepest reason is because of God himself.
Amen.
And so the deepest reason why we are here is that God planted us here. I don't want you to doubt that God planted you in this moment in history. And even though maybe we were shocked and we were caught off guard regarding the nature of the technology and how it connects us to this digital world, God wasn't caught off guard. And God, who planted us in this moment in history, God who gave his children to be our children, he also will give us what we need. Excuse me. He will give us what we need to be able to parent them well, shepherd them well through those dangerous minefields. In order to be able to access that, it's prayer. So let's begin with prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, we praise you and thank you for the gift of life. We thank you, Father, that you've planted us in this moment in history. And in Jesus' holy name, we ask that you would anoint us and anoint all of those who are joining us right now. That you would bless them as parents, and you would bless them as they attempt to shepherd their children in this digital age. Please, Lord our God, grant us the grace we need to discern and decide to do what it is we need to do, to be able to be faithful in following your call in this regard. And we make this prayer in Jesus' holy name. Amen. All right. And with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Amen. Thanks, Carrie.
The theologian that you are.
That's right. All right. There's the way to end a prayer. Amen or all right. It works. Okay.
All right, let's get on.
Well, let's get started first. We'd like to introduce ourselves very briefly to you.
Okay, so I'm Carrie. I have a passion for education and teaching, and I taught for 10 years before we started our family. In the high school and the middle school, I got a master's degree in educational leadership and administration. I really had a desire to be a Catholic school principal. And during those years, I also got a license and a certificate for working with kids with special needs in special education, and also classroom and behavior management. So I really thought that, I have what it takes to help school 9 kids. So when we started our family, I started homeschooling them, so I've homeschooled for 8 years. And just my passion and desire to help kids, walk with them, especially those who struggle, work with teams of people, the counselor, psychologist, principal, to really help shore up the best success they have. That is really my passion. And thank the Lord he gave us 9 kids to practice on, and a husband. Now, Tom, I'll introduce him as well. Tom has a doctorate in systematic theology, and I don't even know what that means. I just know it was a lot of years of school and a lot of investment. But he really has a gift for the faith and unfolding it in ways that are not simplistic, but simple and understandable. He has years of experience studying the great doctors of the church, theologians. He loves love of Scripture, and he has created numerous courses, CDs, DVDs, written several books, goes on and on. And he's been doing this for 25 years. So right now our passion has been taken over with marriage and family and how you raise a family with radiant relationships. But you can go to our site, currancrew.tv, and find some of this content. He also has a radio show he does every day, and we do it together on Thursday and Friday, and those are uploaded on currancrew.tv. They're podcast so you can hear a lot of great content about raising your family in faith. But in order to pay the bills, being in ministry, he had to do a few other jobs. His gift of interpersonal relationship and working with people and leading them and bringing insight where there's real internal controversy with executives caused him to have a job with coaching executives. And also he created, with his partner Josh, the Paladin. So
Paladin is really, it's the company that Josh Sniffen and I started. We were working together in ministry, and it was a desire that we had to innovate around the use of technology for the sake of noble causes, and in a very special way, to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to the internet, to bring the fullness of our church's teaching to the world through the internet. And we intentionally chose that name, Paladin. I say we, but it was actually Josh who said he would only start this company with me if the name Paladin was in it, which is a noble warrior. That's in the vanguard, Charlemagne's vanguard. They would lead the charge into battle for the sake of a noble cause. And so that was it was very meaningful to us to say that we could develop technology and deploy it for noble causes. But it also was connected to St. John Paul II, who had a vision for the internet that struck my heart. It's that the internet can be a place where the face and light of Christ ought to shine forth. And I thought, yes, that's what I want. The call we have to be digital missionaries, to let the face and the light of Christ shine forth on the internet. We can do that. Let's do that. And the reason why that this is coming together with this type of course, we're using the very technology of Paladin to actually do this broadcast, this live webcast and webinar with you, is precisely because there's a battle. There's a battle for the souls of our children. There's a battle for our families. And so the digital world is the place of that battle, and we are committed to entering the battle, and we're inviting you to do the same for the sake of families and for the sake of the souls of our kids. So that brings us around to what we're doing today with you on the webinar. Well, today we're doing Parenting the Digital Generation. And this webinar has 5 aspects. And we've found, as Carrie and I have attempted to reflect on the nature of what it takes, the system of what it takes to parent your kids safely in this digital world, are these 5 elements. And you may have seen them as you've studied a bit about the webinar. It's about awareness. It's about protection, influence, freedom, and engagement. And in the course of this webinar, we're going to give you some initial insights into each of those realms so that you can understand what we mean and then pursue more of that yourself. But we also desire to be of further assistance.
So how can we serve you better on this webinar? We're limited with our time, but we really would like to stay in touch with you. We are offering at the end a 6-part course or 5-part course, and we'll get to that later because we realize how important and extended this topic is, and we just can't cover it in this amount of time, but it's such important information. Also, if you, Amy gave you some information as to how to text in questions. If you want to send comments at the end, we're going to get to as many of those as we can and hopefully get into a conversation that will kind of bring some of the heart issues that you're facing forward. And as we go through the content, maybe you'll come up with some other insights or questions you might share with us. So.
Excellent. So let's dive in. Let's take the first of those points, awareness. We're going to talk about awareness at 3 levels. Awareness is consciousness. How do I see something? And we first want to talk about your awareness of the digital world. This digital world is changing. When I first got onto the internet in the early 90s, it was
so long ago.
Oh my goodness, right? Talk about slow connections and all of this other thing. It was called the superhighway. It was all about traveling across it to get information. It was an information place. Things have changed so radically, and even in the last 5 years, where most of the activity connected with this digital world is occurring on smartphones, on these devices. And so to understand how this impacts parenting, parenting is now fundamentally different than it was even 5 years ago. With the advent of 4G networks, ever-increasing miniaturization of technology, and the maturation of software and social media platforms, the richness of what kids experience and what we can experience on the internet itself has changed. And it's not just rich experiences that are positive. We use the phrase minefields and we use the phrase hand grenades to describe the type of danger, the serious nature of the dangers that are lying in wait for our kids and ourselves as well in that digital world. We need to become more aware of this digital world.
And second, know your child and also know yourself. I think that as we parent, and this is parenting the digital generation, we really need to know our kids. What are their inclinations? What are their personality types? What is their temperament? Because in dealing with our kids, we realize it's a little bit different with each child. You know, one solution does not fit all our kids. And we go through several different types of resources we've used, like Know Your Child by Myers-Briggs. It's a type indicate personality test. We do the 5 love languages with Gary Chapman. We also do Better Than Before. That's with Gretchen Rubin, and she just came out with a great book to help kids. And this is not just parenting our kids on an iPhone or on technology. It's really helping them flourish in the areas of home life, chores, homework, sports, spirituality. I mean, there's just so many ways in which these tools will help us understand ourselves better, them better, our spouse better. And so we'd just love for you to walk with us and get to know some of those great tools.
So just to think about that as we're going forward through awareness. What do you do to grow in the awareness of your own child's tendencies and inclinations and temperament? You know, there's so much richness to be gained from that. Well, also, not in addition to knowing the reality of the digital world and how it's maturing and how it's impacting our kids, and knowing our children and their own temperaments and inclinations, it's also knowing that special moment, having the awareness of that moment in our kids' lives as they approach adolescence, in these tween years when so many of our kids are gaining first access or independent access to the internet, whether it's on a tablet, a smartphone, a laptop, or they're able to more independently use the home computer. It's that time in our kids' lives, it's that time in their own lives where their hearts and the ache in their heart is beginning to dawn. It's emerging in their own awareness, the ache that is there for God. It's a relational ache. It's the desire in our hearts that we were made by God and for God. And as that relational ache emerges. Our kids have this sense of self-identity, self-consciousness, awareness. Who am I? Where do I belong? How do I fit in? And there's this awkwardness of this new consciousness of self. And what else is emerging in that time of adolescence? Puberty, sexual identity, sexual self-awareness, and that sexual urge. And it's emerging in our kids who are not fully redeemed. So it shows up in a broken way. So here we have these kids who are hungering and throbbing in the depths of their heart to know who they are in the relationship with God, but they're looking to belong. At the same time as that ache is emerging, that sexual urge is emerging. And I want you to think about what happens when a sexual desire is emerging in young men and young women, and they have access to a digital world. We have to be so careful. We have to be so aware. So let's move forward and talk a bit about awareness, now protection, the second of these 5 elements. Let's talk about how our kids are actually connecting to the digital world.
That's you.
That's me. And so if we say that our kids... Thanks, Tara. You're so good. I love you.
It's very subtle. That's you.
That's So how are our kids connecting to the digital world, right? So here are kids living in this world, and they've got this emerging awareness that's happening in them. Well, how are they connecting? I want you to stop and ask yourself, how do my kids connect to the internet? The phrase that we're using is connected devices. 10 years ago, when I would present to parents on these things, it was the home computer, one desktop computer that they could keep in a room that was visible, and kids wouldn't have a chance to access the internet on their own. Well, fast forward 10 years, and now you not only have laptops and tablets, you have smartphones, you have other connected devices like game consoles, right? Or like the Wii or PlayStation 4 or the Xbox. These things can access the internet. Or smart TVs, right? Never did we feel so dumb as when we get a smart TV and all of a sudden the smart TV or the Apple TV is connecting directly to the internet. And so now all of these devices are ways that our kids are connecting to the internet. So ask yourself, am I aware of all of the devices that my kids have, that my kids can get into their hands, that can connect to the internet? So that's the first, is they're connecting through their devices.
And the second one is they're connected to the devices through their friends. Part of it is not so much what they're seeking out, but it's what their friends are bringing to them. So one of the instances we had was when our daughter had a sleepover, and through the story we tell, we find out that she with several other girls were at a good Catholic home, hanging out in the basement, and they accessed the internet that was unprotected, unsupervised. This didn't happen once, it happened several times before we got clued in as to what things were being brought to her through her friends. Not only on an internet device at home, but also the texts and the links and the connections that her friends were trying to bring her into, say, hey, have you checked this out? Have you gone to this YouTube video? Have you seen this? So they're bringing stuff to her to say, hey, belong, be a part of this. And we just have to be so aware of not just our own kids, but the kids of our friends. They're all connected. It is not just no longer us parenting our own children, but it's all those that we're connected to.
If we could just like highlight, put stars around, put in bold, right, however else you want to shout on the internet, this is like almost the most important point that you need to know as a parent, that it's no longer sufficient to think that you can lock down and protect the connecting devices in your own home, and now you're done as a parent. This is not sufficient by a long shot. You have to be aware of the connected devices that your child's friends have access to. Do they have a smartphone, a phone that connects to the internet? Does that phone have protection on it? In that friend's home, do they have connected devices that also have appropriate protection and monitoring involved in it? So let me just, Carrie has said it, we're saying it again and again and again. Please hear this point. It's not only you being aware of how to protect the devices that are in your home, but it's the social layer of how kids are connecting to the internet. You have to be aware of your children's friends. And one of the reasons why is that when it comes to their friends, they will be the sources, they will be the doorways through which content reaches them. It's not just that kids are curious, right? Where they're going to go reach out, but stuff reaches into their lives. Stuff is coming at them. So it's not just a minefield, it's a hand grenade being thrown at them. So there you go. That's why we use that intentionally. They might, out of a mistake, step onto a website they didn't intend to. But what about when something is coming at them? And it's coming through posts, it's coming through texts, it's coming through chats. It's coming in so many ways. Okay, let's take a look at the concept of what our kids can access. And one of the examples that we use in great detail in our Parenting the Digital Generation course is pornography, because it's so addictive, it's heinous, it's vile. But I want you just to do a test, just to do this test. In your own home, on the devices that are connected to the internet, just ask yourself, what could my kids access when it comes to something like pornography? So just go into a search engine and just type a word. Type a sexually explicit word. And when that happens, don't just look at the links that show up on the web, but look at images and videos. And you'll understand the layer of protection or not that is associated with your computer. Because the nature of pornography has radically changed, and the forms that it's taken has gone far beyond images and pictures. And so in our Parenting the Digital Generation course, we'll unfold more fully the different ways in which pornography does in fact show up into our kids' lives. But to give you one little form of it, the connected world is now putting our kids one click away. No wall, no credit card needed, no sign up needed. One click into visibility with live sexual activity occurring right in front of them that they can interact with, as well as opportunities for them to be anonymously connected with other people who then will begin to require or call for sexually explicit activity on their part as well. And so it's stunning, it's sick, it's something that we have to be aware of and we have to take serious action to address in this connected world. Let's take a look at how we actually protect our kids. And I want you to think of this. This is one of the biggest things as parents we want to do. Protect our kids. And so we are not going to dive into all the details of if you have an Apple operating system or a Windows operating system or if you have an iPad. I want you to think of 4 Ps: possession, passwords, parental controls, and providers or service providers. Hold on to those 4 Ps. How can you protect your kids? Well, the first of all is possession. Guess what? Can your child access something if you possess it? No, you can't. That's one way to provide protection for your kids from accessing that, is literally possessing it. And if it comes to it, at times we've actually pulled the plug out, take away the power cord, and you know what? They can't access something. That's a kind of radical, but even that is a way.
It's easier.
It is easy.
Quick.
The second is passwords. Do you have passwords on your computers, on your smartphones, on your devices? Are they guessable? Are they easy? Do you update them so that your kids can't just say, I know what the password is, and now all of a sudden they have access? So if you're not always going to be able to possess the technology, so you have to password protect it. But now they have access to it, you also want to have parental controls over it. And so almost any device that we're talking about, whether it's a smartphone, a tablet, or your computer, there's software or there's actually built into the operating system parental controls that can monitor and block content associated with that level or degree of protection that you associate with it. So ask, if it's not possessed, is it password controlled? When it's not password controlled, is it parental controlled? Then the last layer is at the service provider level. And so we find that very helpful, in particular with devices that are often not going to be in our kids' hands, and they're not going to have passwords, and maybe they have the protection around the parental control, but they might want to try to get around it. The service provider itself, so for instance Verizon or AT&T or whoever you have, they provide parental controls at the level of what can actually reach your child's phone itself. So I go online and I can establish what apps are blocked, what apps are accessible, what friends are allowed, what time the phone can be utilized, on and on and on. So different service providers provide different levels of maturity around that type of control. But at the end of the day, that is that kind of a level of protection that you want to be having in your mind for your kids. So protection, not only awareness, protection. But beyond protection, there's also the concept of influence. So let's talk about influence. Influence is really about leadership. One of the best definitions of a leader that I've heard is that a leader is someone who's able to influence people to move in a direction towards a goal. As parents, we want to be that leader. We want to influence our kids towards that noble goal, that holy ideal that we have for them as God's children and as the call that God has given us as parents of these children.
So what is the influence that our kids are encountering online? There's this dynamic online where between the real world and the digital world that our kids come into contact with that we really weren't aware of until the last couple of years. I know CNN just did a big report on this called Being 13, and they tracked several hundred kids and just said, what do they do on their device all day? Because a lot of parents just don't know. But the key thing is not so much what they were doing, but the influence that the social media platforms had on them. A lot of kids are experiencing what they call social anxiety. And I see this with my own girls. It's how many likes do I get? How many comments do I get? How many followers do I have? They are comparing where they fit in on that social status ladder. And the sad thing is, what shows up in the digital world is just intensified and exaggerated from the real world. So these girls or guys are posting these incredibly perfect edited pictures on a platform, and when you look at it, you feel like, well, my life doesn't look that great, and I don't look that beautiful, and I'm not invited to the party that they're at. And there's all this sense of I don't belong, I'm not accepted, I don't fit in, and it just has this negative influence, and that's not where we want to leave our kids. We really want to equip them, teach them, show them, because they aren't even aware that this is happening. And it happens to us as adults. Even when we're on, think of the platforms that you are on, and how sometimes I can come away and feel sad because I feel like I'm missing out on something. And this is just very much a reality of what our kids encounter when they're connected to the digital world.
So again, if you're seeing the concept we're developing here, it might be a new one for you. And that is that the internet is not just some means of communication. It's actually a realm. Think of it as the church's documents talk about a digital continent. And so you can think of it as like an actual place, a reality. It's a realm. It's a world. But it's different than the real world. And so there's an ethos that is part of the real world that doesn't exist in the same way in the digital world. Did you hear that? So an ethos. What is an ethos? An ethos is that morally charged atmosphere. There's that sense of right and wrong that we just carry with us day to day. If I go to the movies, I know don't cut in line. Well, why? Well, you just don't do that. It's the ethos that we just carry about in our world. It's not like that in a digital realm. It's an artificial world. It's not created by God. It's a technological world. And as such, the ethos, the morally charged spirit, is quite different. And so one of the things that we stumbled into was this ethos. So I mentioned the reason why we're here is our daughter's smartphone. We put it into her hands, and then we bumped into a time where we saw her troubled. She was a bit startled. And I still remember, Carrie, I came up and you were talking with her, and she was there with a friend of hers, and she was really kind of stopped.
And panicked.
And she was panicked, right? And you had taken the phone from her, and something had happened online through this phone, and she wasn't telling us what it was. Well, I took the phone and I put software on my desktop computer that allowed me to download everything that was on the phone. And I ended up downloading a group chat that was over 220 pages long. It had gone on for months and months. And our daughter was one of the kids in this group chat. Now, she wasn't in for 220 pages worth of communication. This had gone back over the course of months. But when I printed that out, that reading was like scales falling from my eyes. I thought I was really knowledgeable and understanding about the digital realm because of all that I had done. I had no idea. I was naive. As I began to go through and watch the ethos of that chat. First of all, it was something as simple as language. I know these kids. I knew them all. Good Catholic kids. Good homes. We have good kids. Do you have good kids? We've got good kids. And yet, to see the language unfold, I'm like, who are these kids? I don't recognize them. And then there was the disturbing moment when the chatting went to a type of bullying. And the bullying led to a sexting, where a very disturbing picture was sent to our daughter and the other girl that was in the chat. And it stopped us short. And it was like, what is happening here? And so all of a sudden, that digital world impacted our real world in a way that we never thought it would.
Yeah, and we really want to be, the third point, the primary influences of our kids, because what we notice and what you may see, maybe not with your own kids, but when you're with your nieces and nephews or your grandkids or with friends of your kids, is they're on the phone constantly checking their phone. I can tell you when my daughter gets in the car, she will pull out the phone. When we get home, she'll go up to her room to be on the phone. When it's time to gather as a family, I'll have to call her out and I'll see her messaging somebody. At nighttime, I'm like, you need to put the phone away. And so we've had to take really strong steps to pull her out of that world or to put boundaries and parameters. And she's in high school, but she's like, Mom, everyone's on their phone. Why do you have these strict parameters on us? And we know kids that are on their phone 2, 3, 4 in the morning. There are no parameters. Parents aren't aware of how much an influence the internet has on their own children. And as parents wanting to be her main influence, she's only under our roof for a couple more years before she leaves. We really want to create a home atmosphere where we can lead and have an impact on her that is positive. And so when we talk about this course, there are so many ways in which we just break open. How do you be the influencer on their social media platforms? And so I actually go in on her media befriend her friends, and go into those platforms and talk to the kids and say things and comment. And when kids are swearing, I'm like, please don't use that language. And I say their name, and sorry, Mrs. Curran, I get texted back. Or please don't call my goddaughter a hoe. Who talks like this? Sorry, Mrs. Curran. Because there's no adult authority on any of these social media platforms in a dominant way. I do see some moms, but it's very, very rare. And so here these kids are having this interaction. They're being influenced by each other. And we as parents are called to enter that platform.
Yeah, so Carrie's talking about not only influencing how your kids are in the real world when that digital world impinges on it, but how are those kids actually living in that world? And then entering that world with them. Those are all very strategic steps. Those are all goals that you can have and that we want to introduce to you now, but we dig into those further in the Parenting Digital Generation course. Let's talk about freedom, because that's ultimately, what do we want for our kids? We want freedom. I love that word, right? And so a sense of being alive and somehow being like life-giving, right? And what's the goal then? What's the goal with regards to this technology?
Well, we really, at one point, when it's all said and done, we want to hand our daughter a smartphone because we know she's going to be leaving to college in a few years, God willing, and she will have access to the entire internet. And we want to be able to safely entrust it to her, and say, here, we trust you with this. We've walked with you over the last 6 years since you were 10 or whenever we introduced her to sharing a phone with us. We know how you are on it. We've walked with you in virtues. We've walked with you in lessons and goal setting. And we trust you with this. And we feel a sense of freedom that you will use this in a way that is going to help you bring life and be creative and help yourself go forward and not be bogged down by some of the negative things we've talked about.
Well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to actually get to that place where we say, I trust you, I'm entrusting this to you, because they are leaving us? We look at the theology of St. John Paul II and what he calls responsible freedom. That's the use of our free will in a way that is freeing rather than enslaving. And that's the great sadness of the internet as a digital world. There are so many enslaving landmines and grenades that we want to protect our kids from and equip our kids to address. So we're going to outline the approach that we take in our parenting in all areas, but apply it to the internet. And it's the breaking open of the concept of responsible freedom at 3 levels. I want you to think about freedom as freedom from, freedom to, and freedom for. Freedom from is that having a sense of space. Right? You're in a room. Where are you as you're involved in this webinar with us? You're in a room and you see 4 walls. That is containing you. And I'll tell you what, those walls are making you comply. You can walk until you bump up against a wall and you're going no further. It's like a crib for a little infant. They can go up and they bump against the wall. That's the first level of freedom. Now, kids don't experience it like that. They feel like they're contained, and they are contained. And so when it comes to the first level of freedom with regards to the connected devices that are part of your child's life, the first level is simply asking them, you must comply. It's about complying to the rules that are containing the use you have. So for instance, here's one way to contain the use of your children. I'm going to say you get this for 1 hour a day. You can use these 3 apps, but not anything else. And you must do it in my presence. And when it's done, the phone goes back here. You can use the iPad after you finish your homework if you do it well.
And your chores.
And your chores, that's right. Wow, you're raising the bar, dear. You know? But you can see what we're doing here is we're calling for compliance that says this yes, this no, and there's just a wall. Now, that's not bad. It's a good place to start, but it's a horrible place to end. Because that way of looking at the internet as a digital world is simply saying it's no, bad, horrible, and we need to always contain you in this space. We will lose credibility with our kids if that's the fundamental approach we take. Because our kids are experiencing a lot of life. They're experiencing a lot of things that they identify as good through their interaction in the digital world. And if our approach or the dominant voice that we have coming towards them is no, bad, don't, we're going to lose credibility with them. So we do establish compliance and credibility, but we need to go beyond that.
And so the second level is freedom to choose or give consequences. And just a simple story, our daughter was on the phone over the past weekend, and I noticed her being on a little bit too much, and I finally pulled the phone from her, and I said, you're not going to be on this for the next 5 hours. I'm just going to keep it. And I went and I looked at the times that she was on, because you can track when they send messages, and she was on at 12 at night. I'm like, okay, that's not part of our family rules. These are not the things we put in a contract. And so I said to Tom, we're now going to shut down her access to the internet anytime after 9 o'clock. And so sure enough, Tom went online and shut down her phone anytime after 9 o'clock. Well, the great thing about this is she went to Barnes & Noble's and she bought 2 books. It's the first time I've seen her with 2 new books since the summer. Now, I know she's busy with school, but for the last 4 nights, I go by her bedroom and she's reading a book because she no longer has access to those social networks. Now, like Tom said, they're having fun, they're socializing. 80%, 85% of what they do online is pretty harmless. They really have a great time in all the things that we do with them. I can see why they're drawn to it. But it really is kind of like just sitting in front of a TV for hours upon hours, endlessly watching videos. And just like we wouldn't give our kids a diet that is lots of candy and unhealthy, we certainly don't want to allow them to be connected to the digital world in an unhealthy way. So, choice. We set up contracts, and contracts are great because in a contract you can teach kids responsibility, you can teach them manners, you can teach them respect, you can show them how to set growth goals, personal goals, reading goals, and service goals, and put it right in there that if you want access to this device or to the internet, which they really, really do, then you need to do these different things because this is going to help you flourish as a person. So again, we're walking with them, showing them what it means to be fully alive and not just lost in the digital world, which is where a lot of kids are right now, and parents aren't engaged with them.
So contracts are extremely valuable, and we encourage you to Google that, look for contracts. We ourselves have studied a number of contracts, and in our Parenting the Digital Generation course, we actually guide you in the development of your own contract for your own children. Know your child and establish the right contract for that child. That's good, but that's still not the best, because the best is going to be the deepest level of freedom, and that's freedom for. That has to do with that concept of commitment, where our children will actually, as they grow, have a sense of conscience, that the ultimate consequence that they get, the reward or punishment, doesn't come from outside, from mom and dad. It comes from inside, from themselves, where they feel good and they begin to flourish when they're doing what is right on the digital world. And they feel guilty, they feel ashamed, and they want to avoid and they want to repent of negative activities that they could stumble into or they could choose to do while in that digital world. That's ultimately where we want to go with them, is that sense of I'm committed to doing what is right because it's good. That's where we're shepherding them in the totality of their lives, and that's where we're shepherding them in the digital world as well. Okay, how do we get there? The path to take is formation in the virtues.
And Tom and I do, like we said, we do podcasts. We do a lot of different things as a family to grow our kids in virtues and in faith. And one thing we do is we look at a virtue a month. And for November, we're doing Thanksgiving and being grateful. For February, we'll do love and self-donation. And we build out some different activities and games and prayer services around those themes and teachings. So with virtue, really what it is the freedom they need to live in power. Living a virtuous life is having power. We want to empower our kids and walk with them so they have freedom, total freedom. And there's several virtues that we do with regards specifically to the smartphone.
Yeah, it's so interesting that the virtues that I would teach kids who wanted to grow in chastity actually are very fitting for growing kids to be able to be safe in the digital world. And we call it being champs for Christ. Champs is an acronym for chastity, modesty, purity, and self-control. And again, I introduced that to you because virtues grow together. That's the church's teaching on virtues, is that you want to develop virtues as a group in your kids' lives so that they can stand strong. One of the virtues that we find very helpful, and we talk about in Parenting the Digital Generation, actually in a bonus session, is modesty, and how modesty is a very important part of how you want your kids to be showing up on the internet. And ultimately, that's about leading them from slavery to freedom. That's what virtue is going to do. It gives them the power to do what is truly good for their lives. Okay, lastly, where are we headed? We're now to engagement. Okay, we're aware of what's happening. We know that we're called to protect them. We want to be those primary influencers in their lives. We recognize this call to lead them to freedom. It's now going to take engagement. We got to take some actions. It's like Jean-Luc Picard, who got his crew of the Enterprise all set up. It's not enough just to get them prepared. You got to walk the path. You're called to engage. And the second one is we engage, remember now, not just in a battle for our kids, but for all kids. Too few parents have that awareness to get engaged. We've got to do that. We've got to do that for all of God's children. It's such a fundamental and beautiful call we have.
And third is initiation, not intervention, although you do need to still intervene every now and then, like I just shared with you. So many parents have come to us and said, where were you 3 years ago when I gave my child a smartphone? Now it's too late, they're 14, they won't give me their phone back. And we really walk with you, give you strategies on how to take back the cell phone or the smartphone. But maybe you're here and you have younger kids, so it's great that you can start this process and initiate before you give them that smartphone. And hopefully this will be helpful to you.
Right, so initiation and intervention are both part of engaging. Fourth is setting the example. And that really is, how are you involved in the digital world, right? If you're going to say to our kids, this is what an ideal behavior is for you, and we set that out in a contract, etc., Well, what about us? Are we modeling that? And sometimes we're going to be asked to even live to a higher standard than we want our kids, right? One of the biggest things that impacts our ability to influence our kids is when we lose credibility. Not setting the example is going to weaken or diminish our own credibility and the authority that we have in their eyes when it comes to parenting in these matters. So set the example.
And next is parenting with a backbone and taking a stand. Now, I grew up with 6 older brothers, so I'm ready to fight when I need to. But I tell you, sometimes I waffle with this phone, and I'm like, should I give it to them? Should I take it away? Should we put curfews on it? What should we do? Because you hear from your kids, but all my friends. And so we really do walk with you and give you some strategies. Especially like now we're to the point where when kids come to our house, there are no cell phones. We collect them in a basket. When kids come to our house and they're having a sleepover, we collect them from our nieces because we know it just leads down a wrong path. We want kids to have great relationships, flourish, without having to be connected to the digital world all the time. And they will do that if we don't set those boundaries.
And then parenting with God's help is take a knee, right? Not only do we need God's help, on the way in the door, we need God's help to be able to live this out. And sometimes we need God's help to heal us, to find the strength we need to take a stand, and we ask for God's help to protect and bless our kids.
And also show up, be a parent as a digital missionary. Take a step where your kids are. And what I mean by this is we will actually go on these platforms and help be present, show humor, show beauty, show goodness, show up and just be with them present. You have more influence on those platforms than you do if you're a volunteer in your kids' classroom, or if you're a parent that shows up at a sporting event on the sideline cheering that team on. If you show up on these kids' social platforms like Instagram, they see you and you can and celebrate them and write affirming things to them. It's a powerful thing that we talk about later on.
Lastly, go further. Right? This is just a first step. This webinar, it's brief. It's our attempt to give you a sense of the whole. One of the reasons we're doing this is that we didn't encounter anywhere on the internet a total package for what it takes to really be able to successfully parent well kids in a digital age. So we've tried to give you an overview with some key insights and to give you some paths to take forward by the questions that you ask. But if you found this to be helpful to you, we do want to encourage you to consider letting us serve you further, letting us walk with you some more. We have that Parenting the Digital Generation course, which we mentioned a few times. We'll go into that in a little bit further in just a moment. But we also, Carrie and I, speak live on this topic quite a bit. We've done that around the Northwest, and we are open to serve you in the course of a weekend, and we've got some information about that on the screen. And that's something that you can learn more about as we be in touch with you afterwards. We do want to dive in briefly, though, to give you more information about our Parenting the Digital Generation course. And so some of the information you're going to see live on the screen. And Carrie, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, okay, great. So it's 5 sessions, and we really want to create a spirit of togetherness, walking with you, where you come live to these events and we interact, we get to know you. There are several benefits to that, and a couple of the benefits would be?
Well, the sessions themselves will happen over the course of the next 5 weeks. They're going to be a blending of Wednesdays and Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So the course begins on Wednesday, November the 18th. So that's next Wednesday. And they're all recorded. So if you can't make it live, you will get the recording. It's yours to keep. And then before and between sessions, we have a private Facebook page that is just for those who have signed up for the course, where you can ask your questions, because we want to accompany you. We know that so much of what's involved in being an engaged parent in these matters is implementing, testing,
yes,
reflecting, trying again when it comes to these things. And so we want to give you a safe place to bring your pressing situations so that you can get support, encouragement, and accountability as you walk the path. So these 5 sessions occur, as you see on the screen, during those dates at this time of day, 9 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock in the evening on the West Coast. And we want to hear your questions and your pressing situations. And we're going to have experts available to also be of service to you on the Facebook page itself. Now, the cost for that course is $49. $49 covers the entirety of the 5 sessions, as well as participation in the Facebook group and the access to that expertise. It's an introductory price, and we're doing it to honor your presence. You've taking time to be with us here tonight live, and we want to honor that. We also want to honor that you're walking with us as we develop this course. We want you to know that there is a money-back guarantee. If you don't find it valuable, we will happily give you your money back. Okay? Did you like that, Jeff?
Yeah, that's great.
And that price is available for the next 3 days. And so we're almost to the start of the course itself. We really would like to be able to call those forward who feel that sense of commitment to walk with us, to do that. And so we do encourage you to click on that button that is right below the video box. It'll give you that chance to sign up and order the course, again, for that special price of $49.
And we have a bonus session. My daughter and I and Allie, a gal that works here, we're going to do a live webinar just helping your daughter or son be on Instagram, which is the most popular social app that kids are on that are tweens and teens. And maybe you are giving them a smartphone, or you're going to let them share your smartphone, which I highly recommend before you give them one. Just give them a half hour on yours a day, because you can monitor and see what they're doing. It's a lot easier. But we're going to just walk with you and help you accompany your child to show up and brand themselves online in a way that is real positive, that sends out a great message. Kids really don't know how to take photos. They don't know what to write. They want to be cool. They want to show up beautiful, but they just don't know how to do it, because we see a lot of different fun photos that our nieces and friends put on Instagram, and they just need help. So we're going to do this course. We're going to have you accompany your daughter, watch us. We'll give you some tips. We'll give you feedback. Mary Grace does a great job writing things. You can go look at her Instagram page, Mary Grace Curran, and see what she posts there, and just help you and your daughter be online together as a way to be present and engaged. It's going to be really fun, so hopefully you can join us.
Yeah, and if you're not interested in the course for whatever reason, you can just sign up independently for that beautiful From the Inside Out course. It's $19. But it's a free bonus session if you do sign up for the $49 course.
But you can tell your child that it's an early Christmas gift.
Yeah, well, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Mary Grace is looking forward to it, and we already have, I don't know, more than a dozen folks signed up for that, so that's really neat. Well, now it's your turn. What did you find most striking? What did you find most helpful? Or what questions do you have for us? We're interested in engaging with you. So we got Amy back at her post. Amy, we'd love to be able to dive in and be of service to folks and any comments or questions that they have.
Sure, absolutely. And everyone's just sending tons of good wishes. Oh, sorry.
So, Amy,
I've been here the whole time. I did not sneak out for a piece of pizza, I promise. No, everyone has been sending really just great well wishes and blessings for you guys, and just for this ministry you've been taking on. So thank you for everyone who's been commenting. There are just a few questions that have come in that we wanted to maybe just dive a little bit deeper into for now, just based off the folks that are with us live that have that opportunity to comment. And if you still have a comment or a question you want to submit, you can submit it below at this time. But a question that Letitia asked is, how do you feel about the spy applications for smartphones? There's different spy applications that you can get. Sometimes it's a monthly cost. Have you guys used those? What's your experience with them? And at what point would you consider doing something like that for your child's phone?
It's a great question. And so by the spy software, what they're talking about is an app that you can put on your child's smartphone that is able to track all the activity or mirror all of the activity, so that anything that your child is doing on their phone is mirrored to your phone, so that you have a report or you have visibility to what it is they're doing. So there are a number of apps that allow that kind of connectivity between phones. I would say this, that if that was going to be introduced into my child's phone, I would let them know it. Don't hide it from them. You're calling it spying software, but don't use it in that form. It's almost your kid's best protection against themselves. If they know that everything they're doing is being monitored, it's going to function like a wall. It's going to contain them. So I would say that the principal use of that type of software would be in the containment strategy. I think it would also function as a mode of intervention.
Intervention is what I thought.
In serious situations.
Yeah, well, I think if your child already has a phone and you know that they're overly connected and you're not sure what's going on and you're really concerned because their personality has changed or they're disappearing, you don't see them out of their room, then I would intervene, because you just have no idea what is going on. If you're strong and you take that phone from them and you're able to spend many hours downloading everything like Tom did, that's just a whole nother path. Whatever path you take, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of management. I mean, we didn't mention this, but it is really time-consuming to walk with your child when they are on technology, and it's just the reality of what we're dealing with today. So I'm not opposed to that software. I think kids would feel a sense of even freedom if they say to their friends, I have spy software, guys, don't send me stuff, and then they know not to do stuff. And it kind of sets them free. It's a level of freedom that little baby has in that crib. They know they won't get hurt. So.
Right.
Not opposed to it, but I've never used it.
Well, and think about one of the uses of it is that kids can delete their tracks. At least they think they're deleting their tracks.
Yeah.
At least it's on their phone. So they delete messages, they delete posts, Snapchats go away. So these types of things that you're like, I don't know what my child's doing for sure, and I'm fearful that my child might be doing things that are harmful to herself or himself or to others. Maybe they're being harmed by
more serious situations.
People coming at them, predators, or other types of images coming at them that's disturbing them. And so you can see that there are valid and important uses for that as a parent in terms of caring for them well.
Okay. Hope that helps, Letitia. Great.
Yeah, or how about just accidentally purchasing things? Has that happened to anyone else where you're like, what is this on my credit card statement? They're like all these little purchases, and I was like, how do I block that? And it's so simple. I just, from the standpoint of having little kids, that's something I have to worry about, is just them being able to one click and purchase something on that device. Another question that came in from Ryan asked, for those who are thinking, okay, I hear you loud and clear, Tom and Carrie, I'm totally on board. Now, how do I, as a parent, safely and rationally transition my child into a more supervised, secure digital experience without massive child resistance?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And for me, that is, how do you move your child up the ladder from containment to consequences, right? So, okay, they're in the wall, and now we're going to move them forward where they have more freedom. And now all of a sudden, they're experiencing not just the rewards of that freedom, but maybe some of the punishments, and they're not liking it. And so I would say, number one, know your child. So you want to be able to set your child up for success in terms of what freedoms you give, how you reward, and how you punish. If you do that, you're going to less likely step on a landmine in your kid's life, and your kid won't be throwing hand grenades at you. So I think that this is where principles we can lay out, application is going to come from you doing a bit of the reflective thinking and pondering and dialogue with your spouse or with other trusted individuals. What's going to be the right way to do this for my child, and step into it that way.
Sign up for the course.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy because you're intervening. And kids are so possessive once they have that phone. Even if you say it's our phone, we're giving it to you, within 3 months, they're like, this is my phone. And they just have this serious psychological click. And we've had to do this with our daughter, and it was messy for a few days. But I'm telling you, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If they are being harmed or they are addicted to the digital world, there's so much good you can gain back from them. There's so much good to be salvaged. And I know you don't want to allow it. I would say stand strong, get that backbone, and do it. Hopefully we can help you. Tom's an excellent one-on-one coach for working with difficulties like that, but it's going to be messy. So
yeah, we do encourage you.
I think there's any easy answer there.
Right, and that's a difficult one to walk alone. So if you would benefit from being able to bounce this off of people like us and other experts
Support,
that have wrestled with this, then that joining that course and joining the Facebook page will provide you with the sense of accompaniment, that support, encouragement, accountability. Yeah. So, great.
Yeah, sounds great. Something to look forward to. Messiness, right? We all need more of that in our life. So this last question came in from Rich. As we all know, kids are growing up faster at a younger age. So what's the best age to talk to your kids about this subject? Like, what does engaged parenting look like as early as age 2 or age 3?
I like that. So I'd say that the right age is the age in which you're going to start putting this kind of technology into the hands of your kids. So yes, age 2, yes, age 3, but it's not so much talking as it is actions speak louder than words. So I think that a lot of it is going to be, oh, let your child know that they can play an educational game on the iPad, but then know the game's going to be turned off, and now we need to pull that away from you. So it depends. You can see how we initiate.
Yeah, well, and I think it's like you would give kids candy or sugar. Like, there's a limit. It's not healthy for you. This is not good for you, but we want you to have some. And so there are those, just transfer those simple lessons you teach your 3- and 4-year-old to technology. And I don't feel like we should wait until they're 10 or 11, because we're talking about modesty when they're in 1st and 2nd grade, and we're talking about purity as young as 3rd and 4th grade. And all of those we introduce with using images from what our kids are seeing, because we're saying, do you see how you're showing up, how you're impressing upon the world? So we really believe that you're walking with them day by day. I guess it's just breaking it down to their age level, developmental level. I hope that helps, Rich.
Well, great. Well, we just want to thank you. We want to honor the time. We're at an hour, and so we just want to honor the time that you've given to us today. It's been a real delight to be able to walk with you, and that's our goal. Our goal at Curran Crew is to help you, Mom and Dad, know how important you are, and to help you fulfill God's call to develop radiant relationships in your married life, in your family life. And that's such a blessing to us to be able to do this with you when it comes to this crucial topic of parenting well when it comes to that digital realm.
In all things, too. And in all things. And like we said, go listen to the podcast. We do give a lot of great parenting techniques on working with your kids on goal setting, on how do you work with chores, family prayer, mealtime, manners. I mean, we really try to cover so many areas that we deal with in our home, and hopefully just to give you encouragement, because it is a lot of work, but it's a great work, and it's a worthwhile work.
Great.
Yeah. So
thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Tom. Let's go celebrate Friday night. Woohoo! Date night. Now we're gonna have our date. We're West Coast time. So thanks,
Goodbye.
you guys.
God
Bye.
bless.